In this video, we will create a view of a hosted feature service with various different capabilities and subsets of layers. So open up the create views.py script from the views folder. In the previous section, we deleted our feature service. So I want you to open up the 18 jump-in.py script from the views folder and run that script. This script is recreating the feature service as it was before we started deleting data, feature layers, and the feature service itself. With the script complete, grab the new feature service item ID from the interactive window. I'm going to copy that. And now I'm going to go into the create views.py script. We are going to use the item object ViewManager property, which creates a ViewManager object that has a create method that allows you to create a view of a hosted feature service. This view will allow you to set different editing capabilities, subset the layers and tables, and also subset the fields that you see in the view. Let's head over to the documentation for the create method for the view manager. Here we have the create method for the view manager, and it creates a view of an existing feature service item. There's a nice description here. You can create a view if you need a different view of the data represented by a hosted feature layer. For example, you want to apply different editing settings, styles or filters to define which features or fields are available, or share the data to a different group than the hosted feature layer itself. There is one required parameter, and that is the name of the service to create. The name must not contain any spaces or special characters. There are plenty of optional parameters. We are going to use capabilities, view layers, and view tables, which you can also define a new description, tags, and snippet. If I scroll down, the create method for a view manager returns a new item object for that view feature layer. I'm going to head back to the Python script. We first access ArcGIS Online using our GIS class and supplying our home string plus our GIS object to a variable called AGOL. We then use our GIS object, content manager, get method and supply in our feature service item ID that I copied from the printout from the 18 jump in py script. Paste that in there. The get method will return an item object that will assign to a variable called item. Now there is a known issue that I have a link to up here, that when you are creating a view and using a subset of layers or tables, that the original feature service also displays that subset even though the layers and tables are still actually in the feature service. We're going to counteract that in this script, and hopefully that issue will be solved in future versions. First up, we're going to create a read-only view. To overcome that issue that I just talked about, we're going to get the item object JSON definition through the getData method and assign that to a variable called item data. Once we've created our view, we can then inject that back into the item definition, and that solves that issue of the layers disappearing. So we're going to create a view with the required name parameter. I've set a variable called view item, and I'm going to call the item object, and we're using the view manager. And from the view manager, we are using the create method that we saw the documentation for. That has one required parameter, that is the name parameter. And we're going to set that to equal Park Trails read-only view. And that is the only parameter we have to set. Running this code will create a view that is read-only where the editing capabilities have not been set. We'll print the view item ID, view item title, and view item type to screen. The create method does return an item object. We're going to update the JSON definition back to the original. So use our item object update method and set the item properties to a dictionary of text and the original item data dictionary returned from the getData method. So I'll run this script. Our script is complete. We can see the item ID for the newly created view layer, the title of it, and the item type. So it still says feature service. It doesn't acknowledge the fact that it is a view service. Let's head over to ArcGIS Online and check out the results. We can see we have our original Park Trails feature service. It is a feature layer hosted, and we have our newly created Park Trails read-only view, which is a feature layer hosted view. Now if I click in, I'm going to show you another unfortunate issue. As you can see, no layers or tables are displaying for this view. And if I click into data, we're getting a loading error. I have figured out that when you use the insert layer method to add in a new feature layer, as we did back in the add layers and tables section, that layer seems to cause an issue when you are creating a view. That was the county boundaries layer that we inserted in using a shapefile. I click into settings, we can see that the editing options have not been enabled, and this would be a read-only view of the data. I'm going to head back to the Python script. I'll comment out our first example, and in the second example, we're going to create an editable view with a subset of layers. Once more, we grab our item JSON definition. We're using the item object ViewManager.create method. We're setting a name to Park Trails Edit View. I'm going to use the view layers parameter and set that to equal our item object layers property. And we're only interested in the first 3 layers, omitting the county boundaries layer. The view layers parameter takes a list of feature layer objects from the feature service. Now we need to set the capabilities parameter, and that is a string of comma separated capabilities. So we're going to set it for create, query, update, editing, extract, and sync. So we are not enabling delete as an editing capability. Once we've created our view, we will then update the JSON definition of the original item object. I forgot the S in item.layers, and I'll run the script. With the script complete, we'll head back over to ArcGIS Online. I'll go into the Content tab, and we can see we have a new Park Trails Edit View. I'll click in. We can see this time we have our 3 layers as subset, and that the county boundaries layer was causing an issue. Now I hope you notice that there are no tables in here. So we set a subset of layers, and once we do that, we actually need to set what tables we want to. I'll click into settings, and we can see the editing capabilities that we've set. We've enabled editing, we've enabled sync, we've allowed add and update but not delete, and we've allowed extract. I'm going to head back to the Python script once more. I'll comment out the second example. And in the last example, we are just sorting out the layers and the tables. So this is the same as above. We're getting our item data. We're creating our view. We're going to call it Park Trails All Edit View. We're getting our subset of layers, and we're using all the tables, and we're setting the same capabilities with create, query, update, editing, extract, and sync. And then we are re-injecting the item data back into the original item. So I'll run the script. With the script complete, we'll head back over to ArcGIS Online. Go back out to the content. Click into the newly created view. And here we can see we have our subset of layers and our 2 tables. I'm just going to go back out to content and click into the original item, which is our Park Trails. And we can see we have the full set of our layers and tables available in the original. Make sure to continue on to the next video in this series, and also make sure to subscribe. Take care.